Hey everyone, welcome back to Let's Play Chrono Trigger. I am Mega Freak 400, and in this episode, we are going to continue onward to face Ozzie and eventually Magus, so we can stop Lavos from being alive. Here, this is a room similar to a one we passed earlier where we could avoid everything. We're not going to be as lucky here. This is the room after the monster save points and Ozzie's traps and all that stuff. So, this room we have outlaws who are similar to the, was it Lone Star or whatever the name was? The ones in Dendera Mountains. They're just stronger versions of whatever the might have been Lone Star. I don't think it was, but something like that. Something like that, whatever. Anyway, this is the first place we find Jugglers. Jugglers was mentioned by the Guardia soldier who was dying in that cave, the magic cave. What Jugglers do is, if you attack them with a magic attack, they'll increase their defense to be strong against magic attacks. I don't know if they have 0 damage, but they definitely take less damage, like almost none. And then, so you have to attack them with a physical attack, and then they become strong against physical attacks. So you have to keep switching between magic and physical. So they can be somewhat of a pain. But if you know how to deal with them, just switching between magic and physical, they're not too bad. And they're sometimes mixed with like other enemies that you'll see coming up soon, but you can usually just, you know, again, use like a magic attack that attacks all enemies and then use a physical attack on just them. They're fairly easy to deal with. And these roly bombers will, I don't know if there's a way to kill them without them exploding. I'm sure there probably is, but I don't know. So, things to talk about before we get to Ozzie, since there's not going to be too much to talk about in-game. And I'll try and, if I see myself using an attack, I know I haven't really been explaining all the techs all that well. I'm hopefully going to have an extra video where I just show off all the techs, like all at once and explain what each do. But for the most part, they just are, you know, stronger special attacks for the most part. Some have healing abilities. There's some, you know, special ones like Marley's, taunt, I think, can confuse the enemy. So there's stuff like that, but most of them are just like stronger attacks for the most part. If you've been reading my weekly Nintendo upload or Nintendo download on Mondays, where I basically say all the games that are being available or that are available on the VC and the WiiWare and DSiWare, every week on the Blargg Pit. I'll post a link if you want to go see that. But anyway, I've been mentioning recently a lot about how, you know, there's a ton of people complaining about, you know, there not being any new games and games all being sequels and sequels and sequels. And when I say you know, when I say like all these people, I mean, like, I usually do some surfing. I'll just surf random comments or, you know, different forum areas and just, you know, just randomly look. So it's not like there's this giant everyone is thinking this way. It's just stuff I've noticed. There's like, you know, people thinking this way. There's really not a lot of basis behind that statement, but it just seems like there's been a few people I've seen complaining or you know, saying, well, we want less sequels from these companies, and it's like, well, there's all these innovative games being released a lot for downloadable services that are innovative or new, but they're not made by like mainstream companies, and a lot of people don't pay attention to them. A lot of people don't download those games, or like even if they, you know, see them on the list, they're like, well, that game is not made by a main company. The name doesn't sound familiar. I'm not gonna get it. And, you know, I can definitely understand that with with console titles, personally, because, you know, money is tight for a lot of people, and, you know, putting down $40 for a game that you've heard is good, but you may personally not like it, is not something you always want to do, which I can understand that. But for like downloadable games, the most they usually can be is about $20, and usually it's not even that much. Usually it's only 10 at the most on like WiiWare, sometimes 15. And so, like, you know, in that case, you know, I think, you know, considering those games, it becomes more of an option. You should at least be more willing to consider them when it gets to that point. Like, for example, last week there was a game released called, I believe it was Jet Rocket, which was a a 3D platformer for WiiWare, which looks really good. I right now I've been spending way too much money on games lately. I do plan on getting it whenever I get the chance, which I probably will eventually if I remember. Because it looks really good, and how much you want to bet? Well, there's of course some people who follow the Virtual Console releases who probably will get it. A lot of people aren't going to get that game because it's not a well-known title. It's not from a mainstream series, and that's the thing with with games from lesser companies and independent developers, as in they don't have a publisher, they don't have a main name attached to them. They tend to have a lot of innovative games, a lot of creative games. Oh, Lightning 2 is the stronger version of Lightning, obviously. That can attack all enemies now, instead of just one, which is really useful. But, there's a lot of innovative games in the independent, from indie developers, because they're not, commercial. They're not commercial, they don't have to worry about the money as much because, they're independent. And here, if you go around the statues, you won't have to fight any monsters, but if you go in between the statues, then you do, which I will be fighting some of the monsters, but I was just showing you this trick. And if you go through that one, you'll face them when you go on the stairs. But yeah, it just seems like for example, there was a game released this week, I think, I don't remember the exact name, but it's a Pearl Harbor dog fighting playing game that actually looked really decent. It looks like a really decent game, and I as soon as I saw that, I'm like, this looks really good, but I bet no one's gonna buy it, or very few people are gonna buy it, because they're not gonna consider it's not made by a well-known developer. It's made by a company that hasn't made games that everyone knows about, and people aren't gonna even consider the game. That people aren't gonna consider games. It just seems like people complain so much about commercial and like Nintendo and all the well-known developers not making, just making sequels. But if you think about it, I'm not saying it's right. I'm saying they probably shouldn't. They should make less sequels, but in a commercial standpoint, sequels sell well. So that's because they are commercial games. They sell it commercially. They're commercial because commercial versus independent, as in they have publishers. They're well-known series. They're with independent developers. I don't know all the information on that, so I can't speak like super knowledgeable. I try to read up a little bit before doing this, but with independent developers, they're not as focused on, they may have success, they may not, but they don't seem to be as focused on attempting to get money. They probably are, but they're not as focused as in just making an innovative game. You want to see innovative games, you want to see games with, and when I say innovative games, I mean like concepts that are, like a lot of the World of Goo, a lot of physic type games based off physics engines, a lot of innovative puzzle games, a lot of interesting games that are, Cave Story was an independent game, and it's of course similar to other games, but it's different in its own right. That kind of stuff. That's what you get from independent games, and it just seems like people pass over all these unknown titles or these not well-known titles just because they're not well-known titles. They don't even read into them or maybe consider them. One thing that I've gained from looking up on the downloads and actually writing about them is I start to learn more about the games that are being downloaded instead of just passing off the titles as being well, okay, they don't know this title, I'm just gonna pass it off as sucking. And actually reading up more on these games, I'm like, well, this might be good. I don't always buy a lot of the games, but that's personally because I'm not rich. Even with $10, $10 games, 10 does add up, and I do understand that. But there's some people who haven't bought any downloadable games in like years, or any WiiWare games, DSi games. There's a lot of good DSi games too that I've seen that people just pass over. They don't even consider them, and it's like, I'm not saying shell your money to companies to get these games, but if you're gonna complain about there not being any new titles or interesting kid titles with new characters, at least look into these independent games. There are a lot of good ones. World of Goo is one of those games that is an independent game that is really good, and that's one of those ones that actually had quite a bit of success, but some of them don't. So we have Ozzie. Ozzie has encased himself in a giant block of ice. You can't beat him by attacking him, but if you attack all of these little I guess, wenches or whatever. The little turny things. Eventually... Wee-hee-hee! Eh? Love this voice right here. Oh, I guess I think at one point he actually has like a little scream, but that might be this later on. Yeah, we'll be seeing Ozzie on later, or Ozzie later on. But anyway, Ozzie is defeated, so that's all 3 of the generals. So it's time to take on Magus, but we won't do that until next time because we don't have any time. Because Magus actually does take a little bit of a, it's a little long. It's a pretty long fight. So next time we'll be fighting Magus and hopefully stopping Lavos from existing. Because, we don't want Lavos to be destroying the world. So this has been MegaFreak 400. And I'm reminding you to check out some independent games, because there are some quite good ones that you might be missing out on.